When I was it's about 7, my parents moved to Myrtle Beach, and we moved to a trailer park. All the black kids hung out together, all the white kids hung out together, and then you had all the rejects. I wanted so desperately to have friends that I would put up with it. They would invite me over to play video games or something. I mean, the old Nintendo days, and I'd walk over, and I'm excited. My friends invited me over to their house finally so I could play games. I'm like one of the cool kids. Walk in the door and get punched in the face, and then beat up, and then held there until I quit crying, quit sobbing, quit bleeding, and them just playing video games while they won't let me leave. And then
today I am joined by Dr. David Powers. He goes by Dave. He's an adventurer, philosopher, and a pioneer that lives a life of constant experimentation. I've been following your journey, my dude, on social, and I could definitely see you living that out daily. Dr. Powers, or Dave, sorry. Thank you for joining me today. I'm thrilled. I cannot wait to dive in.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here.
Me too, man. Me too. And as I'm looking at you guys, you're probably listening. Those of you not on video, you're listening audio. Just imagine this, Viking, right? This red hair Viking with tools in the background, right? Tools of war, right? So just have this in your imagination. While he's got an actual tool in his hands, right? But, he's got such a diverse background. That being said, David, you've got an impressive bio, my man. It reads like various lives, which, you lived fully so far. You're a decorated Marine. You're a founding member of Homeland Security, a best-selling author, a psychologist, a proud family man of 4 feral boys. I want to make sure I said that correctly. And 1 princess. You call yourself a shenaniganizer. I'm surprised I said that correctly. And I love that, right? But how did a guy who helped build the Department of Homeland Security end up as a homesteader writing fiction? Like, give us the context here.
Oh man, like a lot of guys that have worked for the government, I mean, and I'm sure you understand this well, you see the inside of it, and you realize I shouldn't trust these guys. I mean, we all were there with our buddies, and we trusted our buddies, we trusted our team. But once you got to the higher levels of the bureaucracy, you realize, wow, I need to just make babies and grow my own food.
Oh, love it, man. Make babies and grow your own food. Yeah, I love that. So tell us more about the journey you're on right now in this current stage of life, in this current season. Just give the listeners a quick glimpse in your life. Like, what does that look like right now?
Man, these days I am settling into routine and trying to create routines that I love. But I've got this little farm, and like right behind the computer where I'm talking is my basement. It walks out, and I can see the woods and the birds, and occasionally the donkey that roams around the neighborhood will walk by. And I am loving this stage of life. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll still join in some shenanigans and adventures, but I like just sitting on the porch and reading or watching the weather and just yelling at people to get off my lawn. Except I live on a dirt road, so nobody's on my lawn, but sometimes I'll yell it just for the heck of it.
That's awesome, man. As you're saying, get off my lawn, reminds me of a scene from We Were Soldiers. Sam Elliott played this sergeant major, right? This command sergeant major. Get off my grass. Of course, I'm not going to be able to replicate that amazing voice that he's got, man. But as you're saying, I'm picturing that scene.
Oh, man. Good morning, Sergeant Major. What's good about it?
Yes. Although that was a PG version of that. So, but yes, such an amazing movie. Now I'm going to have to watch that again.
Hey, and an aspect of this dream that I didn't even think to mention too, though, is I can walk out any door in my house and just pee in the yard. I mean, that's like the American dream.
Yeah, I can't exactly do that right now.
Well, not legally.
But I could.
Somebody's ring.
I could
get pictures of you.
Yeah, exactly. I might have the HOA or some, rather unpleasant neighbors, or maybe they might be. I don't know. Never mind.
It'll be on your OnlyFans site.
Oh man, they'll probably pay me to put my pants back up, to be honest with you. But thanks for sharing it, man. I loved how you shared this journey that the highlight where you are today, right? You get to enjoy this life that you've designed with intentions, right? Where you are today. One of the things that you have not said, and I haven't really touched on either, is behind the scenes, you're building a path of passive income, right? You're building. If I'm looking at your bio correctly, or I looked at your bio correctly, is your goal is to build $100,000, passive income annually. Talk to us about that. Like, what does that look like for you in terms of passive income? What is passive income? Because there's a lot of misunderstandings around that, but just walk us through that for a moment.
Oh yeah. And as far as the definition, that way, before I start talking, people understand, like, passive income, nothing's truly passive. At some point you have to invest the money or the time or both. I just kind of think of anything passive adjacent where I can do the work once. And so it might be recurring income, but I do the work once and then it just comes in. And so for me, and my journey to the 100K a year, I'm not anywhere near that yet, but I'm getting there. I'm making strides, and sometimes it'll, $100 a day passive income, sometimes a few thousand, depending on what Bitcoin's doing. But I've got passive income in like fractional real estate, investing in online real estate stuff where I just buy a portion of, like, say, an apartment building. A lot of money in crypto, and I've got some friends that, well, I don't know, I hate to say it like this, but like crack the code on crypto because they invest, it's called yield farming. And so I invest in that. And yield farming makes money on the trades in crypto. So whether crypto is going up or down, there's those fees that come about. And so I've invested in these guys that are making money off of fees. And so when crypto goes down and everybody gets scared that shouldn't have been in it in the first place and they sell all their Bitcoin, my friends are making money off the fees. And when crypto goes up and everybody's wanting to buy when it's going up when they shouldn't, they're making money on the fees. And so, that's some of it. And then I've got all my books. I've got a little publishing company where I publish a lot of my own stuff and other people's stuff. And, that's the typical passive income people think about. Money coming in while I'm sleeping, kind of money.
Real quick, before we keep going, if you've been listening to this conversation and something hit a nerve, if something we talked about made you pause, or you felt that little tug in your chest, like, man, that one was for me, I want you to lean into that for a second. Don't just brush it off. Because here's the thing. Conversations like this, yes, they're great. And I love doing this show. I really do. But if I'm being real with you, a conversation can only take you so far. At some point, you got to stop nodding along and actually do something with that feeling. So here's what I want you to do. I want to personally invite you to something we built called the Reforge Challenge. It's a live 5-day experience I created specifically for people like you. High performers who know they're capable of more, but something got knocked sideways and your old playbook just stopped working. Or maybe life smacked you in the face with a 2x4 that you just didn't see coming. Maybe the fire just dimmed and you can't figure out how to reignite it. 5 days, 5 real identity shifts, live coaching, real community, and the kind of honest conversations that actually move the needle. Not just another thing you consume and forget by Friday. Listen, you're not broken. You're just in between versions. And I'd love for you to come see what we've built. Head on over to reforgechallenge.com. Again, reforgechallenge.com. Check it out. See if it speaks to you. And if it does, I'll see you inside. All right, let's get back to it.
Yeah, nice. Thanks for sharing. It gives us some insight, in your perspective of passive income, because there is a big misunderstanding about passive income. There is no true passive income where you don't, invest some sort of time or resource into growing it, nurturing it to some degree, right? Yep. But unfortunately, there's a lot of ads out there, and a lot of people out there that that's been somehow been led to believe that that's not the case. So,
oh yeah.
But man, Man, let's dig in, man, because we've presented this amazing life that you get to live, and again, as I mentioned, that wasn't always the case, right? You described your life as taking massive action, and this highlight we're sitting in right now is an absolute result of this massive action, right? In fact, you even said you abhor the lazy person. Just move, right? And I can't agree with you more. That is something that frustrates me to no end. People that constantly talk about doing something but don't execute. But let's go down into the basement for a moment. Because you mentioned your intake, and you mentioned in your intake that you were abused as a child. And I think a lot of people, and unfortunately, quietly can resonate, with that, myself included. Although I'm not as quiet anymore. But you use this as fuel, right? And I definitely want to walk through this because it could be an amazing tool to harness if done correctly, right? But let's dive into this. You said it lit a fire in you to fight like hell. So take us to a specific moment you realize your success wasn't just ambition, but it was a reaction to that trauma. And if you want to walk us through that a little bit more, feel free to.
When I was about 7, my parents moved to Myrtle Beach. And you're familiar with areas like that. It's like the redneck Riviera, kind of a beach town.
Yeah.
And we moved to a trailer park. And, nothing, no fault to my parents or anything. They didn't know, and I wouldn't talk. So definitely don't want to cast shade on my parents. But trailer park kids, it's a lot like, you ever seen the movie Gangs of New York with DiCaprio and all those guys in it?
Yes.
Trailer parks were like that growing up. They were gangs. And all the black kids hung out together. All the white kids hung out together. And then you had all the rejects. And at times I would be friends with all of them, but they behaved like gangs. And if you were the little kid, you'd get beat up all the time. And I wanted so desperately to have friends that I would put up with it. And every time I think like, wow, okay, I finally made it. I'm finally friends with these kids. They would invite me over to play video games or something. The old Nintendo days, and I'd walk over and just get slugged as soon as I walk in the door. And as an 8-9-year-old, I'm excited. My friends invited me over to their house finally so I could play games. I'm like one of the cool kids. Walk in the door and get punched in the face and then beat up and then held there until I quit crying, quit sobbing, quit bleeding, and them just playing video games while they won't let me leave. And then, looking back, it's like, you stupid little kid, to put up with this. I would sit there waiting to stop crying so that they would let me play video games with them. And then I would go home that evening and not tell my parents, or if I did have bruises or a bloody nose or something, I fell riding my skateboard, which happened a lot anyway. And this went on for 5 or 6 years. And
wow.
An almost daily thing, because get home from school, go out. And, I would get into tons and tons of fights. And I was just a little scrawny, redheaded kid, easy to make fun of. The same guy I am now, except all the hair was on top and it was bright red, rosy cheeks.
You're not easy to make fun of, by the way. I just want to say that. I would never do that. Nor would I ever advocate anybody do that.
Kids go to the other side of the street when I walk by because they're scared of, Viking Santa Claus. But those days, man, I was the little redheaded kid that got made fun of and beat up all the time. And then at some point, about middle school age, there were some of the high school kids that started paying attention, and they would invite us over and make us strip down and dance and things like that. And there were some things that some of them got into that they would go back in the bedrooms, and thankfully I never was forced to do that, but still ended up having to see a lot that I wish I didn't. A lot of things that kids shouldn't encounter until they're old enough to fight back, or old enough to know better. And still, even as a middle schooler, I wanted friends. I wanted friends so bad. that was willing to put up with all that crap because I didn't know it was supposed to be any better.
Man, thanks for sharing it, dude. I can really, not to a large degree of that, but I come from a background where I was abused emotionally, not physically, thankfully, but by every other sense of the word by my mother. And my dad and I didn't have a good relationship. And to your point too, I don't blame this on them, right? I love my parents to death, and I look at their programming, what they received, and they only did what they knew, right? And that being said, we are programmed with this behavior, these beliefs, these different scenarios early on, right? And in most of my programs, I always talk about, going back to this 8-year-old or 7-year-old or 6-year-old before your hopes, dreams, and aspirations get tainted, right? Because we all had hopes and dreams, like, Mom, I want to be the president. Maybe not so much these days, but but you had hopes, you had dreams, you had aspirations before somebody else tainted them, right? Either because of what they said to you, or because what they physically did to you, or maybe because of trauma throughout your life, either in your younger days, mid days, whatever. You're prior military, you served in the government, so you know exactly what kind of trauma I'm talking about. So talk to us. How did that affect your programming, right? This traumatic phase that you went in your life, where you're constantly getting beat and you're seeing the things that you're seeing, and you're saying, man, I wish I told that kid to done something differently. Of course, hindsight's always 20/20, right? But how did that affect you, later on? How did that affect you as a young man? How did that affect you as a father, as a husband? Talk to us about that, man.
Yeah. Late middle school, something clicked at some point. I got into a fight. Well, actually, I was urged to get into a fight. Like, they would try to.
Did you win?
Almost. They would try to make us fight people just to watch. And I was doing good. I mean, and we're talking early 90s, the heyday of WWE wrestling and all that. I had this kid in a suplex, and I was ready to drop him, and he almost bit my finger off. And he latched on, and that was like the one time my mom thought, what's going on? Because I go home and my finger, she had to take me to the hospital and everything, and I still didn't tell her the whole truth. But I tell you what I learned from this is, other than don't let somebody get your finger in their mouth, because that's always bad. I learned that these kids respect me a little more if I'm fighting and I'm winning. And so that taught me, I'm going to learn how to kick everybody's ass so they don't kick mine anymore. And that's from that point on, though, good and bad things happen. Like, I started learning how to fight, and I would start fights every chance I got at school. I mean, I got suspended so many times. The thing is, though, I'm actually a certified genius on the IQ scale. And so I look away. I don't doubt it. I look very blue collar, and people don't suspect it. But so I was this kid in middle school that my teachers loved me because straight A's. I loved the essay test, all this stuff, and they loved me. And so when I would get suspended, they would still send the work home because they didn't want me to get behind. So it's like I got weird best and worst. But I would start fights every chance I got. And so I went through all these years where, I could fight good and people didn't abuse me anymore, but I was always angry, always mad at everything and always looking for everything to be a fight. And I still have trouble with that because that lasted for so long during those developmental years that for a great many years of my adulthood, I kind of turned into a pussy because I didn't want to get angry and fight. And I would avoid conflict at all costs for a long time. And I still have trouble with that because I was always afraid I was going to fall back to the angry, kick everybody's butt, Dave. And, like I say, I still have trouble with that. And that's affected my job as a father, sometimes getting angry too fast.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of people can, right? Especially if they've had to live that kind of life. In fact, even just recently, I found myself to get to a higher state of agitation, higher state of anger. And it's like, man, where the hell is this coming from? I mean, I know where it's coming from, right? It's kind of a dumb question, but it's like, man, this is not the version of me that I want to emerge. This is not the version of me that I want my kids to see or to think that it's okay, right?
And you recognize it immediately after the fact. Like, I didn't recognize this buildup, and then he yelled at my kid. Now I feel like crap, And then like this last Sunday, my 8-year-old got another warning in Sunday school. Well, not Sunday school, but like the kid church, trying to choke out a kid because the kid accidentally hit him with a ball. His first instinct was to jump on him and start choking him. And it's not that I taught him to choke kids out when from an accident. And we try to teach our kids, like, here's self-defense and here's out of control. And but I get angry too quick, and they see it and learn it without me teaching it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes to show that we live by example, right? Whether it's a good example or a bad example, we live by example. And I'm constantly reminded by a quote by one of my mentor's coaches, Ben Newman. You can only lead to the level of discipline in which you live, right?
Yeah.
And so you lead regardless of where you actually think about it or not, right? So you talk about how this anger is still affecting you to this day. In those situations, how do you deal with that? I mean, how do you deal with, that other version of Dave emerging, right? You sense your blood pressure going up. You sense it. How do you deal with it, man?
Oh, man. And with me, it's very visible because I start turning red from here and it just goes up. And I mean, visibly bright red, like sunburn red. I cannot stop it or hide it either. Like my kids see that happen and they just step back. I try to channel it into energy because at its core, it's always felt like energy. When I was a kid, I channeled it into fighting. Like, I'm feeling stressed. I'm getting beat up here. I'm going to go beat up somebody else. These days, I try to channel it into work energy or workout energy. Sometimes I'll go out I've got an old barn here on the property that we've got squat racks and stuff out there and punching bags. And I'll go out there by myself so I can play the music I want to play and turn on the gangster rap or heavy metal and just, throw the iron around or beat on the punching bag. Or I'm here in the office and try to turn that into something. And I'll tell you something that's been very therapeutic for me lately, because you mentioned about the dreams and things that were tainted. 5th grade, I've still got it. This little sci-fi short story I wrote. I've always wanted to be a writer. To me, I mean, I've written probably 20 nonfiction books, but it's weird, but I don't consider that being a writer. To me, writers write novels like Stephen King and Tolkien and all those guys. And I had this short story I wrote in 5th grade before everything got tainted. And just this year, I'm launching my first novel, my first full-length novel. And that's, to me, that's big evidence of how far I've come because, and it's therapeutic because I'm writing it very close to reality. There's a lot of things in there that I haven't opened up about that my character is opening up about, that kind of thing. It's amazing how therapeutic that is. And some people that know are going to say, wow, that's Dave in that scene, but it's in this novel. But yeah, that's something I'm moving into now to try to untaint those dreams, I guess, redeem them, from a Christian point of view.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that, dude. I love this novel idea, man. Later on, I definitely want, for folks that are like on the edge of their seat right now, listening and hearing from you, man. I definitely want to give you an opportunity for you to, share where they can find out more about this novel. Because now I'm like intrigued. I want to read about this amazing Viking that I'm sitting before, having this amazing conversation with. What you said earlier, talking about, going out to the barn, right? And, hitting the iron and work with the iron and hitting the bags and so forth. It reminds me of the phrase, exhausting the body so you can tame the mind.
Yeah.
Right. And I could definitely relate to that because I find myself when I don't do some type of physical exertion or activity, whether it's going to the gym or it's rolling on the mat or whatever. If you don't exhaust your body, having that outlet of frustration, that pent up frustration, we'll just call it frustration, anger, frustration, whatever you want to call it. Right. That it is easier to get into that agitated state. It is easier to get into that mode where, you just want to destroy something. Right.
Yeah.
It is not the person that's sitting, before you, because oftentimes it's the person before you that, you love and you don't want that to come out of.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and here's a bit of therapy too that maybe I can suggest to anybody that's listening. If you have any bit of land or somebody that has some land or something, get yourself a good axe and just go out and chop trees. It's crazy, but it's such a good workout. It'll make you feel better. It actually boosts your testosterone. There's so many things about just chopping wood that it's such a basic man thing.
Now we're going to have a severe droppage of trees shortly after this episode's released.
We're going to get blamed for destroying the rainforest.
Oh no, we're going to get protested, Dave. We're going to get protested because we're advocating for destruction of trees. Oh man. Again, I love the fact that you're writing this novel, because I think this goes back to why journaling is so important, right? And this is a journey that I've recently reinforced myself to do, is journaling, allowing your feelings and allowing and a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to write about my feelings. Well, we have to, because it allows you to physically see what you're experiencing, your emotional state. It gives you a sense of peace when you write about these things and you're able to get it out there, right? But you're doing it in such a way for others to actually get impact from your story, right?
Yeah.
You're allowing others that are the Daves out there in this world that have gone through some of the things you've gone through, and they don't know how to process it, right? They don't know how to process just this past. They never got past it. They're using the anger as fuel, but they're using it in a very destructive manner.
Yep. Or
right?
the whole victim mode thing.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you mentioned some gold here, but I want to talk to those Daves right now that are listening right now. That saying, Dave, man, I can wholly resonate with your story, or man, that happened to me too, or they too suffer with this anger, right? This pent up anger that rages on. So, what do you tell that Dave? Like, what are some things that they could do right now, right? What are some things they could do right now to, get into a different version of themselves where they don't have to rely on anger in a destructive manner?
Yeah. Tell you what, I'll do two main things. And we could pick those apart too if we want to. Number
Beautiful.
one, something physical. Find something physical to burn energy. And something you enjoy. Like I hate running. People that love running are just weird. It's not natural. But I like rucking. I hate running, but man, I've got backpacks and weights up on the front porch, and I'll just throw some weights in a backpack and take off walking and enjoy it. And the health benefits are about the same. You don't get as far, but it also feels more manly. You see most runners and there's just scrawny, skinny little guys. And of course, with my history, I'm thinking I could take him. And but you see a guy rucking, and it's like if he's doing this with that big backpack, man, if he takes the backpack off and chases me, I'm in trouble. So so something physical, something you enjoy. And secondly, I would say don't forsake professional help. Just this past year, I started seeing a therapist and at the VA, and it's been tremendously helpful. And the weird thing is, it's not a veteran. It's not a guy my age or an old Vietnam vet or anybody that's a therapist now. It's this young girl that's probably no more than 5 years out of college. And I'm telling her things that she's like, oh, crap, this dude is messed up. But in a non-judgy way. She's actually not very, she's not judgmental about it. But it's just nice to be able to just talk openly about that stuff. and all this kind of stuff. I mean, the things I can't say on camera or just not ready to reveal yet that have happened to me or I've done, in case the statute of limitations isn't up or anything. And it's just
I can edit those out, man.
Yeah. It's just nice to be able to talk to somebody like that. And so I would say, find a way to have a therapist or somebody to talk to.
I agree wholeheartedly. I'm also on that same journey. It's ironic, how close or how similar we are in a lot of ways, man, because that's something I've been a journey I've been exploring too. And I have been told by numerous individuals and, for numerous times throughout my life, man, you need yes, because of situations and so forth, just because of the demons we battle with, the voices in the fit of rages and all of this stuff. Right. And unfortunately, it is shunned upon, right? Especially for us dudes, we can't talk about our emotions. We can't talk about our feelings and but to your point, man, there is something about sitting in front of somebody virtually or in person to sit down that is not family, that doesn't have the baggage behind them of all the past stuff and just be able to sit there and to communicate everything, right?
Yeah.
And pray that the person doesn't run or call the authorities.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I don't recommend you open up to your pastor like this. Because I've done counseling with my pastor before, and no matter what they say, they'll look at you different. They'll wonder if you're safe in the church or
you're
if you're good for a leadership position because you've had all this trouble. I mean, I suggest you find somebody outside your friend group, social group, all that.
Agree. And not that I'm, not that this video is sponsored or, anything of that nature, but BetterHelp, I think it's BetterHelp.
Yeah.
Is an online platform that provides that virtually. So, and they're really cost efficient. So, for those that don't, feel comfortable going outside your house, there's one avenue for you. Now your Instagram, Facebook's going to be flooded with these kinds of advertisements. You're welcome. But I agree wholeheartedly, man. I think that's important for every person. And, to your point too, not to do it inside your church. I know a lot of pastors advocate for that, but I have to disagree because there is some type of, it's not out of malintent or anything. It's just, it's there, right? It's out there. So
it's weird because as a Christian, I would go to a non-Christian counselor before I would go to my pastor with some of this stuff.
Really? Why is that? I'm curious.
It's interesting because a Christian, even a Christian counselor, that I've been to one or two, they all have their own versions of denominationalism or things like that, and the first thing they do is get judgy. But when I go to a non-Christian counselor, they've got all the therapeutic techniques and the DBT skills and all that kind of stuff.
Makes sense.
But I can also explain my religious upbringing, like how the little independent Baptist church I grew up in was part of the reason I got screwed up. And not all churches, but I'm just saying the one I went to was horrible. And part of the reason I got so angry. I mean, and so, but I can go to these non-Christian counselors and explain my Christian upbringing, and they've not been judgy. They've not been anti-religion. It's all the things that people are afraid of. I've not experienced in that regard.
Real quick, before we keep going, if you've been listening to this conversation and something hit a nerve, if something we talked about made you pause, or you felt that little tug in your chest like, man, that one was for me, I want you to lean into that for a second. Don't just brush it off. Because here's the thing. Conversations like this, yes, they're great. And I love doing this show. I really do. But if I'm being real with you, a conversation can only take you so far. At some point, you got to stop nodding along and actually do something with that feeling. So here's what I want you to do. I want to personally invite you to something we built called the Reforge Challenge. It's a live 5-day experience I created specifically for people like you, high performers who know they're capable of more, but something got knocked sideways and your old playbook just stopped working. Or maybe life smacked you in the face with a 2x4 that you just didn't see coming. Maybe the fire just dimmed and you can't figure out how to reignite it. 5 days, 5 real identity shifts, live coaching, real community, and the kind of honest conversations that actually move the needle. not just another thing you consume and forget by Friday. Listen, you're not broken. You're just in between versions. And I'd love for you to come see what we've built. Head on over to reforgechallenge.com. Again, reforgechallenge.com. Check it out. See if it speaks to you. And if it does, I'll see you inside. All right, let's get back to it.
That's a very good perspective, man. I didn't think about that until you're talking about that, because I can relate to that. Going through, in my earlier years with my father, him and I were going through various types of churches, and yeah, man, we've had all kinds of experiences, dude. From your traditional, Southern Baptist type of churches to you name it. I'm not, and again, this is anything against the church, right? We're not talking about anything about, not going to the church, any of that. We're just, it's a different point we're trying to make here is, making sure you're careful with who you share your information with, who you share your past with, man, because I agree with you, man. There have been a few times I have communicated, and this is probably why it was very hard for me to open up, because a few times I did, it came back to haunt me. It was actually used against me, as ammunition to harm me.
Yep. Or you become the third sermon point.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or as I'm getting more and more success, or as I'm gaining steam, right, and I'm starting to overcome some things, they use that one ammunition to knock me down. And it's like, man, it shook me. Right. Yep. And it's like, it just makes that comeback even much harder, because they knew that little screw right there, the turn,
That's one reason I don't mind coming out on podcasts like this about some of my past and everything, because I kind of figure, if I do run for president someday, I just want all this stuff out in the open. And the more that's
definitely vote for you, Dave.
We're going to dig for. I've always said I'm going to run for president, but I don't want to be president. I just want to get the experience.
More power to you, man.
I would not want
the
job,
experience.
That's a horrible job. I mean,
no.
And not even thinking political. I mean, just the level of security, the loss of freedom, the low pay, everything about it.
Agree. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I am with you.
Oh, hey, can I add one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
One more thing for success, or getting past all this stuff, is paying attention to your foundation, your hardware. So I mentioned doing something physical, but just making sure your body's in shape. I just started. I'm on week 3 of testosterone therapy now, because apparently I wasn't aggressive enough, and so now I'm doing testosterone therapy, and I've got a level of energy already that is crazy. I mean, I'm
really
bouncing everywhere now. Before I would get all sluggish at 3:00 in the afternoon and have to drink coffee just to pick me up.
Yep, I'm right there with you, and dude, this is scary, man, because I'm getting goosebumps right now, because earlier this year, actually probably late last year, I have really been more laser focused on my health. And it's funny how that works when you start to see more hospital visits and start to see your body deteriorate, right? Yeah. But I've been putting a lot of intentional focus into my health, in not your like traditional ways, right, where you're taking all these supplements and vitamins, but more of like just listening to your body, doing fasting and getting your blood checked, like your full blood panel. They'll just go to the doctor. Hey, I need my blood panel. No. Go, get your whole, your all of your blood, tested for all your markers and all that stuff. And my testosterone, it was extremely low. It was 270.
Oh, wow.
For me. Yeah. So, and I've done testosterone therapy before, through shots, and man, I swear I was chasing my wife around the house at that time.
Yeah, that's been one of the side effects that I've enjoyed.
It is definitely a side effect to enjoy, for sure. So, for those who are listening that, they're feeling sluggish and they feel like they're just burned out like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, go get your blood checked.
Yeah.
Full blood.
Replace all that caffeine with testosterone.
Yeah, absolutely. And just prepare your spouse for what's to come when they, start that therapy.
Yeah, it works. I mean, I was in the 400s, and so it wasn't even as low as yours, but I guess I had enough symptoms that I talked the doc into it, and
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it though,
That's
and my kids are enjoying watching me do the shots. I'm gonna let them start doing it too. We'll play darts with Dave.
Nice. I can actually see that actually. Oh my gosh, that's funny. My daughter is taking peptides, which is another area that I've been exploring. Doing peptide therapy and whatnot. And she's 19. She's getting. I mean, she's always been physical fitness. She was a youngster swimming, actually doing BMX. No, actually, before she was doing martial arts, and she's been athletic for all her life, and now she's really focused on personal training and so forth. And now she's recently gone into peptide therapy, and she's very anti-blood, which is funny because before, up until a couple months ago, her track was going to be pre-med. She was going to be a neurosurgeon or trauma surgeon.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, sweetheart, you're going to see a lot of blood in that path.
Yeah.
But she is very anti-needle, and so she came home the other day with a new set of needles for her peptides. She's going to take them, and they're a bigger gauge. And she's like, "Oh my God, that hurt!" Oh man, but I hate needles, man. You went in at the same time or close to the same time I did when they. When you go in, right, and you have to do your immunizations, there's no needles, right? There's these guns.
Yeah. Yep.
They pound in your shoulder. Man, I still feel it to this day.
I was a combat medic for a long time too, and I did immunizations for that was my job, was doing the immunizations for the whole state.
Oh, you got joy out of that.
Oh my goodness. And it was so much fun when the guys with tattoos would pass out just from a little IM needle.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're the guy that had this massive smile. Relax.
Yeah, relax. It'll quit hurting tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe. So let's get into some. You've given a lot of practical advice, and I love this. For those that are listening, I really want to dive into some specifics. You talk about movement and so forth. And one of the things that I quote you on from your bio is you say action over meditation, which I wholly agree. But a lot of people are like, huh? Action over meditation. So, most people say breathe, journal, but you say move, right? Those that are listening right now, explain that. What do you mean by that?
And the weird thing is people assume I'm against meditation, but I mean, I've actually got my journal sitting right here beside me that I do every day. So I journal and I do meditate. And and that's been great for some of the health problems I've had. That I credit meditation with healing some of the things that have been wrong with me over the years. Agreed. But I find that most people use it as an excuse for lack of movement. I'm going to sit here and think about it, or I'm going to sit here and ponder this, or I'm going to do a pro and con list. And I was reading in a book yesterday. I'm a big fan of the Matrix and the whole red pill, blue pill scenario. And I never really thought about it until I read this in a book I was reading yesterday. And talking about the red pill was only knowledge. It wasn't action. When Neo took the red pill, it only exposed and told him what was going on. And most people stop at taking the pill. Just like people that are taking all these GLP-1 medications and everything. And those are, nothing wrong with those if that's what you want to do, but they'll take it and not change their lifestyle. Yes. And they think, okay, I can take this and now I can still eat like a pig and never work out. And there's never been a piece of gym equipment I wasn't going to waddle away from. And that's why movement. I mean, and I'm a big fan of move first, even when you don't have all the answers. Seth Godin used to have this thing he said, ship it. Like, ship it before it's perfect. Like, ship it when it's good enough. And so my thinking is just get off the couch and move before you got a workout plan, before you get a trainer, before you get a gym membership, before you have the next business idea. Just start moving, and it'll help. It'll help way more than meditation most of the time.
Agree. When you agree that a lot of people prevent even taking a first step because of overthinking, overcomplicating, waiting for that perfect fill in the blank, perfect time, when you get enough money, get enough skill, get enough knowledge, get blah, 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 blah. Right. Yep. Just take the first step.
Yep.
I love
Yep.
that.
And it's also that differentiation between goals and dreams. Everybody's got dreams. And,
Yeah.
for instance, my wife here on the farm, she'll talk about wanting to have bees or goats or anything else, but she'll never do it. I'm the one that's like running the Tractor Supply and buying stuff and putting some work in, and then she'll help. But that's the difference between goals and dreams. A lot of people have
Yeah.
dreams. I have dreams, but it's when it becomes a goal that it's actually moving beyond meditation to action.
Yeah. Just move. Yeah. That's move. Awesome, man. Awesome. So you mentioned your wife for a moment, unrelated, but also unrelated, or related, but not unrelated. How do you want to say that? You mentioned in your bio, right? Your plan B concept, right? And this is where a lot of people, myself included, struggle with relationships, right? Counting on people, and when they let you down, it really reduces your motivation. I hate to use that word motivation, but it really reduces the motivation to continue to rely on people, right? So you said in your bio, people let you down, always have a plan B. So walk us through that. What is this plan B, or how do you even build your plan B?
Yeah, and that's where I got the name for my website, the Red Team Goals, because in the military we would red team things, and red team. For those of the people that don't know, I know you're familiar with it, but people that don't realize, red teams are the ones that it's the good guys, but they would play bad guys and come in and try to destroy everything you built. Your
Yep.
plans, or in the military, you would actually have guys physically invade bases and track people and things like that. And so red teaming all those plans. And so that's where a bit of the stoicism and everything comes in, is just look at what is the worst thing that could possibly happen. Like, what does failure look like? And then try to plan around that. And so that's always part of my planning when I do things. And so when I do count on people, I always have in mind, like, what if they screw it up or don't deliver, or, I find people, well, nobody's going to be as determined about your thing as you are. And so even if you're paying
Agree.
somebody or their family or an employee or whatever, they're never going to be as determined and sold into it as you are. And so I always try to plan for that just in case, and just so I'm not totally surprised. Not that it doesn't increase my workload or make things hard on me when they do screw things up, but I'm a little more ready for it.
Makes perfect sense. To your point, and I read this. Actually, I don't remember if I read this or it was a video I watched, but I think it was from Myron Goldman. In fact, I don't know if you know who he is, but a very, very phenomenal dude. He mentioned something to the effect of, you're talking about, people not seeing or having ownership of what your vision is, right? And I love the way he broke this down. And I like to get your feedback on this, because I think that's what I'm hearing correctly is, God puts this vision in your mind, right? He puts this goal and this vision, this dream in you, right? It's not for other people to see. It's not for other people to get ownership of, or to seek approval from, right? And this is where I have to get frustrated with people with, because they feel like they have to get other people's buy-in. Like, it's okay for them to go chase this vision, this dreams, hope, aspiration, right? So is that what I'm understanding from you? Is this is what God's planted for you, and this is what your way of protecting that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I mean, if God's given me a vision for something, whether I get help, whether the help deserts me, anything. I mean, it's kind of like, when the bad things started happening to Jesus, they all left. And
That's right.
Was it John Mark that ran so fast he ran out of his coat? And so we got a plan for that. And of course, Jesus had a plan, and they all came back. And that's the neat thing is, you can plan the plan B, but sometimes they'll come back and they'll buy in differently. And we see what happened with the Gospels, how they all came back and the plan worked for them, and then they spread out and did amazing things.
Yeah, I love that. And to those that are listening, if you've got that dream, hope, aspiration, or vision, or whatever, please, don't let other people's lack of buy-in, lack of approval, or whatever sway you.
because if you're not listening, if you haven't been paying attention, this vision has been planted in you for a very specific reason, for a very specific purpose, not for other people like myself or Dave to get our buy-in on the process, right? So,
Oh yeah, and
just wanna
friends and
make sure.
family will try to talk you out of it most of the time.
Oh,
I
100%.
mean, I could get a W-2
100%.
job at a gas station, and my friends and family are going to be like, "Yeah, it's a good job. Good thing you're working full time." But you try to start a
Right.
business or have a big idea, like a podcast like this. People are going to
Yeah.
be like, "Is that a real thing? How do you make money? What are you going to do when that fails?"
Yeah. Yep. That's something that causes tension in our family.
Yeah.
Is that, and I agree wholeheartedly. In fact, I had a guest on not too long ago talking about, security. I say this sarcastically, security of the 9 to 5, because there is no security in that element, right? Yes, there's the perceived security in a sense that you show up and you get paid for said time, but that boss can walk in at any point in time and say,
Yep.
"See ya," right?
Yep.
Because you smell funny, you look differently. Maybe you forgot to brush, your one tooth that morning.
Yeah. Yep. Or COVID hits
one
and you're
strain
out of
of
work for 2 years.
Right? Yeah, exactly. That didn't happen. That was sarcasm. But I agree wholeheartedly, man. The most secure investment, biggest security is in yourself. And unfortunately, too many people don't believe that because of what other people have installed into them, right? I can't think of the term here, but
Yeah, and don't
Yeah,
get
I
me
mean,
wrong.
it-
I mean, I see people with the security of a job, and it is a facade, but still, I'll see it sometimes though, and see somebody making 150K a year and not hustling half as hard as I do, and
Yeah.
think like, should I do it? Should I look for a job? But then I think, no,
tempting.
I can't have a boss. There's no way I can work with a boss these days.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's not just the money aspect too; it's the freedom.
Yeah.
It's the freedom of being able to dictate your life. I mean, look at what we're doing, right? We're sitting here having an amazing conversation, right? Doing what we love, talking about what we love doing. Was it easy? Hell no, right? But that's what makes it worth it, right? When you get to that peak, when you get to that point, it's like, man, this journey was so amazing because, yes, it hurt, but it helped me become the individual that I am today. It helped me become this person that you see today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, just today, like this morning, I'm out in my iron barn. That's what we call it, the iron barn, with my 2 little kids working out.
Love that name.
And as soon as that's done, me and my son, we're filming a video for the NFL flag. I've got a contract with them, and we're filming a video for one of their commercials. And then I come here and I'm doing this. And after this, I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to have lunch with my kids. And how many dads can say, I mean, just in one day, I've done what most dads would dream about, spending that much time with my kids, doing fun things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point, man. Yeah, that's right. You're a UGC creator too. And you do man, your resume gets larger and larger every minute we talk.
Oh man. And since I don't do it anymore, like we don't even talk about the medical stuff and the disaster medic and all that, but that's like a whole different life. I mean, I used to do like hyperbaric medicine research and just so much fun stuff.
That's crazy, man. I love it. I hope everybody that's listening is getting, because I am certainly, getting inspired and getting a lot of wisdom here. And I appreciate you sharing all this because, man, this really gives hope for all of the days out there that have experienced a very similar past or a flavor of it, but they've talked themselves out of opportunities. They've talked themselves out of being able to be the best parent, the best spouse, the best entrepreneur found, or just, if you're a fry cook at McDonald's, okay, being the best fry cook at McDonald's, there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
Right. We've all been there, myself included. So, please, take this because we are no different. Just because we're sitting here having an amazing conversation talking about these things, we too came from a very different path, right? We had to work for what we have today. We didn't have anybody, funding us. We didn't have anybody that was here to save us. Nobody's here to save us, right? So as we wrap up, and I hate this because, man, we're having such an amazing conversation. I feel like there's a round 2, round 3 coming up. So those who are listening, if you want round 2 and 3, let me know, because I'm sensing it, but maybe just me, maybe just the caffeine. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give them a little taste of what they could have too. Behind me, beside Chucky, there's a screwdriver, a little tiny screwdriver that's framed right there, and somebody tried to stab me with that, and so I've got it framed in my office. Yeah, so I won't say anything else. So if people want to hear the full story, they gotta tell you they want me back.
Love this. All right. Part 2 is definitely coming. At least it may be just you and I, right? And I'm fine with that, but I got to hear this story now. I got to hear this story, especially since it's next to this Chucky doll. God, dolls freak me out, dude.
That's why I have them. My mom used to freak me out with that when I was little.
Yeah, right next to the battle axe and other tools of war that you have next to it. This makes perfect sense, guys. You got to check out the YouTube video, because just imagine this highly well-spoken, carried, very high IQ guy, but he's does not resemble this, right? He's your true Viking in all sense of that word. As we wrap up, you mentioned in your intake, that toughness through adversity, is your definition of grit. Man, I cannot agree more. Can you give an example of maybe this just week of how that might have been displayed?
Toughness through adversity. Weird thing is, I'm actually in a huge slump right now financially, and I've been doing a bunch of videos about it just to open up. But last year, I lost some clients. Got kicked out of my dad's business that I was working for, the family business, and lost a tremendous amount of money. And the weird thing is it's stressful. And yes, it reduces like just mental margin that I have to do things, but it's spurred me in a way that I'm trying to bounce back stronger, better, faster from that, and figure out, okay, where were the mistakes in this, and what can I change about what I'm doing now that's not going to happen again.
Ooh, thank you for sharing that. Because I've, especially in this season of life, I've often been asking myself, okay, what can I learn from this? God, what are you trying to teach me here? Right? Because we can easily get into the other side of the spectrum, right? This victim mentality, woe is me, blah, 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 right? But you're deciding, not choosing, you're deciding, because choice, you make it known as there's a choice there, right? But you're deciding to say, what can I learn from this? God, what are you trying to teach me here? Because there is a lesson learned, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. It's about you asking the right questions or question to reveal. This could be something that God's trying to protect you from, because he sees this major adversity is coming up. He's like, hey, bro, take this detour right over here. It may be a little painful, but it's going to be a lot less painful than this route that you're going to be than the other route, right? Thanks for sharing it, man, because, a lot of people that are listening right now, they're dealing with their own weeks, of adversity, and they need that. They need to hear, this, right? So in this season of life, man, there's always been talks of, especially around New Year's, right? There's, I'm going to, add this, I'm going to add that, whether it's habits, success, or systems, process. But in recent times, I have really focused on subtracting, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's people, it's habits, beliefs, things I've had to unlearn, right? And I love what you said on your, I mentioned this earlier, you abhor lazy people. What is one habit you're trying to actively quit, or maybe something you've had to unlearn, or, anything in nature, so that you can level up?
Man, that's a good one, because of this stuff I'm going through with the finances right now. God is forcing me to get rid of some stuff that I should have said no to, or things that I should have realized I didn't need in my life. And so this year, the subtraction is a big thing for me in terms of what do I need to say no more to instead of saying yes to everything. Because I am a big, fear of missing out guy, the FOMO. And fear of missing out. So I'll say yes to everything, or I want in on everything, or I want to micromanage, and I'm learning to say no to more. And just there being more that can go by without my input.
Agree. I got to ask you, sometimes I just want to ask who your mom is, because, man, It's like, am I really talking to Dave here? It sounds like I'm talking to my other self here. So if I'm hearing correctly, it's addition by subtraction, right?
Yep.
It's a big thing that's going on with you right now, and I can certainly resonate with that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just got fired from my my church volunteer job recently, and that's a whole long story about fighting corporate church kind of mentality. But once it hurt when I did, because I'm like, wow, they don't think I'm capable of doing this thing because they don't like something I was asking about. But then it's freed up some time and stress, and just it's one less thing I have to mess with. And not that I'm telling everybody you should stop doing your church volunteer jobs. But I moved back towards something God had wanted me to do that I had let busyness get in the way of. And so that's, I replaced it with something that should have been there in the first place that time.
Love it, man. Love it. Man, a lot of gold here. A lot of gold. So 60 seconds of grace, because I'm of the belief that high achievers, one of the biggest downfalls is they're expert critics of themselves, right?
Yeah.
They often hold on to the guilt, shame, or things that we did or things people done to us, right? We hold on to that thinking it's our fault. But what is one thing that you've had to forgive yourself, so give 60 seconds to forgive yourself for, so that you can this mental space you're talking about, right? What is something you've had to forgive yourself so you can have more mental space and have the freedom to move forward?
Being a bad parent. I've got 5 kids, and my 2 oldest actually fled as soon as they could and told us they hated us, didn't want anything to do with us. And that made me reflect a lot and a lot of regret, regret over some things I didn't even know. Like, what did I do wrong? I would feel the regret, but not have any answers. And looking back, I mean, we as parents, we can all look back and see things where we screwed up or we could have done better. And of course, your first kid is always an experiment as a parent because you don't know what you're doing.
Yes.
And the last kid, that's why the last one gets spoiled, because you're such an awesome parent by then. And but that's
more awesomer. Yes.
Yeah, awesomer. That's one thing I've had to look back on and give myself some grace on, in that I did the best I could. And they're making choices right now that they don't necessarily have anything to do with me or what I did. It's just the way they process things, the way they saw things. And it doesn't mean I'm perfect. I didn't do wrong, but it does mean I don't have to live with shame or anything, or as the verse in Romans, I don't have to live with the condemnation that they're casting my way.
Thanks for sharing it, man. And I think a lot of parents, if not all, I can't say all because that's a definitive statement there, but I think a lot of parents can resonate with what you just shared there. And I think they needed to hear that, to be honest with you, to have that sense of freedom, because I too can personally resonate with that, right?
And telling that story, I'm surprised how many parents have told me, one of my kids.
Yeah.
And it's usually one of the oldest kids that just decided, I want nothing to do with my parents. I wish they weren't my parents. I mean, and it's amazing how many people have gone through that.
I agree wholeheartely. There are some fellows in my life that, we're talking about this, in our lives, and it's not talked about enough, in my opinion, because, the more we talk about this, the more we can bring to light that it's not just them, right? They're not the only ones that's been through this. And to your point, man, you did the best you could with what you have. It's okay. It's not like there was a parenting guide dropped in God, boom, right? Yeah. Where, here you go, Dr. Dave. Here you go, Carl. You know, that doesn't happen.
And this has come out a lot.
If so, I missed that memo.
I've had my kids accuse me of being a narcissist. And so my therapist at the VA, I've talked to them and hey, what does that mean? I need you to tell me if I am one or not, because if I am, I need to fix it. And according to my therapist, it's just my kids making crap up that they've heard on TikTok videos or whatever and casting that my way.
Wait a minute. TikTok's not, you can't take for everything for real on TikTok? What?
Yeah, anything on the internet's true. You just verify about 3 other sources on social media.
Oh my gosh. Don't tell my youngest that, man. Oh, I agree. All right, man. So, wrapping up, as I mentioned in the green room, to get your brain juices going, because it sounds like you've got a few of them that you pull from. But while you're in the trenches, while you're in the thick of it, man, especially as maybe you're feeling your face getting red, getting flush, right? What is one quote or directive or something you tell yourself to get through that, right? What is something you tell yourself, you coach yourself with?
Yeah, this one, a lot of people it doesn't resonate with, but people that it does, they really get it. But it's a personal mantra of mine that moderation is for pussies, and that you just need to go full bore. And don't get me wrong, there are some things you shouldn't start, and so don't start something bad and then go full bore into that. But if you feel you're doing your calling on your path, doing your thing, go full bore. Don't quit. Don't let anything get in your way. Just fight for that thing.
Agree. Unapologetically.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yep.
Agree. All right. Last question, but this is a 2-part question. I mentioned this in the green room. Part of my interview is I love kind of like this chain forward process, right? Where my previous guest gets to ask my next guest, if they're in my seat, what would be something they would like to know in their life? Like it could be a challenge or anything of that nature, right? So here was a challenge for my last guest. She's navigating a massive pivot and asked this. And before I do, it just seems how fitting every question is. As I'm looking at this, it's like, doesn't change. So she asked this. Marketing is overwhelming and has a million different aspects. If you had to just pick one priority or one skill in marketing to focus on to move the needle, what would it be?
One skill in marketing. Be different. I mean, it's kind of cliche because Seth Godin with the whole purple cow thing and all that, but it's cliche because it's true. It's just that most people don't do it. Be different. You just got to stand out somehow, but stand out in your own way. I mean, like me, I don't mind looking like a Viking Santa Claus guy. And when I do like keynote speeches and stuff, you get a bunch of just knuckleheads get up there and they're just, clean cut, short hair, blue suit, red tie and all that. I get up there and look like, Snoop Dogg thug guy. And people remember me though. And the funny thing is they don't remember my name. They don't remember my name. It's always, I love that bald, red bearded guy. Like, I don't remember his name. Yes. He was awesome. Bring him back. And my look is it's part of my marketing. It's what God blessed me with. God uncovers what is beautiful. Yeah. And, and so I just use it. But you got to find your own thing. I mean, because if there is somebody out there listening to this that is one of those knuckleheads that's just clean cut and everything, they maybe they can use that in some way, and that's going to appeal to some other group. That's just not who I'm trying to hit.
No, that's perfect. You hit the nail on the head. I agree. Especially in an era where it's distraction, right? We're in this era of distraction where everything's fighting for our attention, right? And so instead of trying to be like everybody else and everything else, be you, right? Be your authentic self. Be, just be yourself. I'm reminded of this movie. It was Seinfeld, I think it was. It was an animated movie with the bumblebees. He kept saying, "Be yourself." Yeah, the Bee Movie.
Yep.
Hey, what a fitting title, right? But that's it, man. Just be you, and because that right there helps you stand out for sure, man. That's in how you leave them with the experience, right? The experience that you give them, allowing them to see this Viking Santa Claus, and allowing them to see and experience that stays with them, right?
Yep.
Being like the next guy, it's just like, there was nothing that really stood out. But that dude right there looked like he could carry a battle axe in the same hand with the Santa Claus or the toy sack. I like that dude.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of there's a good friend. You probably know him. I won't say it because I'm going to go against his advice. So I won't say his name, but he always says when he's doing keynote speaking, dress one level higher than the crowd. Like if they're wearing polos, wear a suit. My thinking is always dress one level sideways from the crowd. So that might mean a kilt or, or just no suit. I mean, but whatever. I have worn the kilt on stage. Anytime I do a wedding, I always tell them, like, I will not do your wedding unless you let me wear the kilt.
Hey, man, that's your non-negotiable. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I agree, man. I think there is don't get me wrong. There is always, time and a place for, suits and all that good stuff. Right. But at the same time, man, you've got to learn how to be able to stand out. I've known people that have done keynote speeches in jeans and t-shirt. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. They were clean. Right. But they've done it in jeans and t-shirt, and their performance was really well. Yeah. So.
And I kind of learned this watching. Right. I used to think I had to adhere to everybody else, but I saw Don Miller doing some speeches one time. And this was in his early days. He's more polished now, but he was the goofiest speaker. Bow-legged and everything back in the old days. And it made me realize, like, wow, I can do this. I'm going to be different from him, but I can do this.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's what gives you your edge, man, is being different. So imagine that concept. All right. So what is the question you would love to ask my next guest?
Oh, and not knowing who they're going to be. This is so much fun. So let's do a little Viking with this one. So when adversity hits, the question you should ask is, did you piss blood? Because if you're not, then things aren't that bad.
Ooh. I love that. And looking at my next guest, that is actually perfect.
Hopefully it's not a
love
lady.
it. No, it's not. No. No, it's actually fitting very perfectly.
Good.
So, well, awesome, my dude. Well, David, I really appreciate you joining me, man. You didn't just give us the best-selling author version of this conversation, right? You really allowed us to get behind the scenes and really shared your journey with us. And I respect it. You allow us a glimpse into that, right? The anger, and the trauma, but it also formed you who you are today, right? It fueled that engine to create the successes you've had and to create the life that you get to enjoy today, right?
Yep.
So you just didn't share that trophy, and I really appreciate and honor you for that, because oftentimes, especially in today's era, everybody's all about sharing the highlight reels, right? And it leaves people wondering, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me, right? So again, Dave, my dude, I appreciate you sharing your journey, man. I appreciate you.
It's been fun.
Yeah, man, absolutely. There's definitely gonna be a part 2 of this for sure. So if you're listening, and please, I will do this by the amount of reviews that this gets left, right? Haha, I'm gonna use this to our benefit. So if you want a part 2 of this conversation and hear the story of the screwdriver beside Chucky, give me some reviews. All right. So for the person that is listening, that is resonating with this story with yours, that is like, man, I'm like Dave's lost brother here or sister or what have you, right? Or they just want to support you in your journey, to encourage you or what have you, or learn about what you do more, especially in the publishing space. What is the best place where they can find you, man?
The absolute best is redteamgoals.com. That's my website. They can find out everything I do, and even they can book a stay here in my haunted barn through that website.
redteamgoals.com. All right. Definitely going to be linking that in the show notes, along with some socials that we have for you. And those of you that are all about the haunted, go for it. Me, nope.
We've got skinwalkers here on the property that will, they'll come out and play with you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll pass. Hard pass. All right. To those listening, here's reality. The gap between average and excellence is action, which definitely is in alignment with this episode. David said action over meditation. So, don't just listen, get off the couch and do one thing today, right? You just do one thing. And if this episode added value to you, do the work of a leader and share it. Text this link to one person who needs a kick in the ass today. So, David, thank you again today for stepping in the arena, my dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.